Kia ora. I'm going to have a go at creating a quick video tutorial using the Cricut design space. And so what, was at a camp in the weekend and we had a play with cutting out text from a shape so that we could then stick this onto a card front or other purposes. One of the challenges was a Christmas card. I didn't take lots of Christmassy things with me, so I made a card in this way. I'm going to have a go at just creating a simple thank you card template. So first thing you have to do is measure the card that you're wanting this to go onto. I have done a quick measure using the close to my heart cards, and so I want my template to be 5 inches, close to 5.5 inches and close to 4 inches, but I'm going to add those measurements in shortly. So I'm going to add in a shape. I'm going to choose shapes and then click on the square. This is just going to add a general square shape onto the mat. And what I'm going to go up to here is where it's got size. There's a little padlock, and I'm going to change that. So I'm actually going to make this a width of 4.2. And I'm going to make it a height of 5.6. So I'm just at the moment using the arrows to go up. I could also type in this box and type 5.6, enter, and that creates the card size that I'm wanting to then for the Cricut to cut right around this outside edge. And I'm going to add some text in here that I'm also going to get it to cut out. So to do that, I'm going to click on the text option over here, and it says add text here, and I'm just going to write thank, and I'm also then going to go down, return, and you. So thank you. I'm going to go up here because I actually want to use the Cricut artistry fonts in search because I own this cartridge and I've added it to my design studio. I'm going to type in artistry in the search. It's come up and it should change the font any minute. There we go. And so I'm going to pull that up so that it's sitting over my card, and I'm actually going to change the alignment of this to the center. That way it's sitting in there. Now looking at it, that's fine. What I do want to do is bring it so that the two lines are actually closer together. When I move this, I want to make sure it's fairly centered. You can do this, you can actually set the measurements up so you can see this, but I'm actually happy to go by eye just because there's sort of a boldish edge here and then you've got a broken edge here, so visually it needs to be sitting in the right spot. So to bring these two lines closer together, I'm going to go up to the line space section and I'm going to reduce the line space right down to 0. Okay. The other thing to be aware of when you're doing a project like this is make sure there's enough space between the letters across here. And I can see that there is enough space. If I wanted to change that a little bit, I can type in where it's over here, it's got letter space. If I do that, it just puts a little bit more of a gap between each of the letters. Okay, so now at the moment, if I go to cut this, there's going to be 2 separate layers. And so the text is going to be cut out on one and the card shape's going to be cut on the other. That's not what I'm wanting to do with this project. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to scroll over the project, and I'm going to have to close the camera down because the bits that I'm going to group it from up here, but the bits that I need are down underneath this camera. So I'm going to close it down, and I'm going to then also attach the pieces. So now if I go to make it, you're going to see that it's all on one mat. So I'll click make it. It's all on the one piece, so it's going to cut right around where these white lines are, and it's going to cut out each of the letters. The font that I chose, the artistry one's brilliant for this project because as you can see, there's no bits inside the A or the O. So that's a good thing to look out for if you're wanting to do a little project like this. Otherwise, you need words that don't have these letters that would normally have a piece in them. Now, cutting this out on a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock is a bit of a waste of money and a waste of time. So what I'm going to do is increase the number of copies. I'll try 4 and see how that places on the mat. If I was wanting to be super clever, I may have wanted to make my mats a bit skinnier. My shape's a bit skinnier or smaller or something, so that I can make better use of the cardstock, because there's going to be a big strip left behind. But this can be used for bits and pieces, or practicing stamping images, or all sorts of things. So there we go, that's ready for me to press continue to send that to a mat for to the Cricut for it to be cut. Thank you. So now I've sent these to my Cricut and I have cut them out. So you can see 3 of the cards here with a thank you. And I'm going to use some of the leftover bits and pieces, mostly prickly pear, but a little bit of something else tucked in there. So they're just scrap pieces. The beauty of a card like this is that you can use scraps, and we're just going to be able to add that texture and that colour underneath the cutout before I place that or adhere that down onto one of our close to my heart cards. So I'm just going to trim this down to size. You'll see that in this one I use my trimmer, but most of the case I'm just going to use scissors because they're right there and it's quick and easy, and because no one's going to see these lines, they don't have to be straight. So essentially that's going to just sit there with the colour peeking through, and then I'm going to use the compliments from the prickly pear to actually add some more interest to this thank you card. So cutting around the stickers as per usual so that I am able to place these on the card to see what this looks like. I'm just fiddling and playing around and choosing the different ones, and again it's nice when you can cut things out and place them and see what you like, what you don't like. And if I've cut one of the stickers out and I've decided not to use it, I'm then able to pop it back into the plastic bag that the compliments come in to use for something else another time. So playing with the different flowers, and I decide that I don't want 2 of the same kind of flower. I actually want a different kind of flower in behind the cactus in this setting. So just tucking them in. And part of seeing this layering is I decided that I'll use some foam tape behind the larger cactus peeps just to lift it up from the page a bit. Now when you're gluing down the thank you card on top of the pattern paper, it's a good idea to get in as close as you can to the letters, because when you don't want sort of the gaps showing between when you stick them down onto the coloured paper. Otherwise sort of it's going to look like you haven't finished it off very neatly. And with this glue I've had to go back over and dot bits in just to make sure it's going to stick down well, and pressing quite firmly when you rub that down over the thank you, because you want it to stick down nice and firm. And just using the Tombow tape runner here to stick it down onto the base card before I add on the embellishments to the front of this card. One of the ladies in the weekend at the retreat used washi tape across the bottom here, and that added a really nice touch that you could have a go at using too. So again, just repositioning these flowers and sticking down the stickers underneath before adding the 3D foam tape in behind the larger cactus picture. If you're worried about the stickiness of the stickers, you could put them onto some cardstock and then trim around it, but it's not really going to matter in the nature of this card. One of the beauties of the foam tape is that if it does overhang a little bit, you're just able to trim that off, and then you won't notice that it was there. So there's one card done, plus I've still got the template in my Cricut to do a few more. Next card. So I'm actually going to put these through my Cuttlebug, and I've done that, and I've embossed it so it's sort of got a dots pattern on it to add a little bit of a different texture. Because part of this this video is to show the versatility of a cut like this and the different ways that you can use it, as well as giving a bit of a tutorial on using Cricut Design Space online that you saw at the start. So I've got my textured card, I've decided to use one of the pocket pages with the thank you piece, and again choosing which stickers and embellishments I'm going to add just to add some interest down the bottom of this card. Because of the dimension, it could be almost finished as it goes, but just adding some of these different pieces just makes it a nicer card for someone to receive.
So I decided to get out these leaf stamps and have a go at some watercolouring in them just to finish this off. The prickly pear stickers, because I've used a lot of the complements already, stamps are a great way just to add an extra touch, and these leaves in particular have been really versatile. So I'm using the black archival ink and the stamp, the foam that comes with the stamps in behind it here, just so that I can get a good impression when I stamp it, and choosing 2 of the different leaves just to add a bit of variety and difference on here. So they're nicely stamped, ink pads away. I'll clean those soon. So now I've got my 2 leaves with the archival ink, and what's really nice about this is that when you paint adding watercolours or other things in here, you don't get the black ink running. So I'm just going to use a nice green. I'm actually just going to layer up this green, so I'm going to give it all a bit of a colour with the green and then go over some of the bits just to darken some of the areas. One of the reasons why I love water paints, and I love aqua brushes as well, because of the just the way you're able to play with the different colour and depth of colour across what you're colouring or painting and creating with. These cards would also look pretty cool with a nice watercolour effect across the front, or a watercolour effect in behind. Perhaps a nice splatter or something along those lines could be quite fun. Even the packaging and smooshing technique with our watercolours would be quite cool. So I'm going to pop dot the flower as well when I eventually stick that down. So I'm trying to work out where the leaves are best to go, and I decide to put the 2 leaves off to the left and stick them down, and then using the 3D foam tape to raise the flower up a little bit. So just choosing where it's more visually appealing on the card and making a decision before sticking it down. You could use any of the embossing folders in behind here, depending on the purpose or the who you're saying thank you to. There's some great ones coming up in the new catalogue, especially the alpha and there's an alphabet type one and a rose pattern, and they'd look fabulous on these cards too. And so putting the foam tape onto this flower just to raise it up a bit from the background even further. Nice, pressing that down. Okay, and using some of the sequins just for the centre of the flower, adding a little bit of a sparkle and a little bit more texture to that card. And so I already have stuck that down onto the base card. So working on my 3rd card here, and I chose to use this lovely floral paper. It's a paper that's almost making me think I need to buy another pack of these papers, because they are just so beautiful and colourful. And I know all of us have different likes and different things that we see as naturally fitting with our style, and the prickly pear papers are that for me. I didn't really use anything else over a whole weekend of scrapbooking, and just really loved being able to use these colours and the textures, and the fact that they were cacti that we don't really have here in New Zealand didn't bother me. Over on my blog I put a post about using the cacti papers and why they really fitted with a family picture, because of a song I remember from my later teenage years about 5 cacti in a bonsai tree, and how they lived together happily, and they were all sort of encouraging each other to reach up towards the sun rather than fighting for space. And that related to my 3 kids, but not really to these cards. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that having something like a cactus on pattern papers and things doesn't actually have to deter you from using them in different ways on your pages or your projects. So just adding in a wee eclectic mix of sequins and flowers across one of the yellow zip strips on this card. And playing with some of the different colours. Just, although you can't see it because it's on the video, being able to look down nice and close to this, it just adds that nice piece of interest to it. And so getting that stuck down, and the 3 cards that have been created using this template in 3 different ways.